I'm Steve Zyskowski, and I'm really excited that I've got with me today Adam San Juan. Adam is our guest of honor at this year's Caerusnet Breakfast, and I don't know that that was something that Adam was expecting because we just met last year at the Caerusnet Breakfast as well. Adam's first Caerusnet Breakfast. He was a guest of Jason Tracy's, had been on the Coffee and Grit podcast. And we followed up after the breakfast was over, and I had the opportunity to read Adam's first book. What are you looking at? We recorded a podcast on the Caerusnet podcast about that book, and he's come out with a new book, which I like just as much and maybe even more, Adam. It's called What Am I Doing Here? And I absolutely love it. And Adam, again, he's our guest of honor at the Caerusnet Breakfast this year. So Adam, very excited about it. What are your initial thoughts about being a speaker at our breakfast this year?
It is an absolute honor. Thanks for having me. And you know what? More importantly, it's an honor to share what's in your head. You and I know that we have a lot of trophies. We got a lot of scars. None of that's any good unless you share it. I just happen to put it in the form of a book, two books, and I've got another one coming out. But you know, the whole SiriusNet thing is a poster child for what this book is about. This book, for the most part, is about helping you determine if you are surrounding yourself with the right people. And I've been a part of other networking programs. And for the ones where I walk in there and go, what am I doing here? It just makes me say, I'm probably in the wrong place. But then it becomes, how do you codify that? How do you say, okay, if I were to say unequivocally, this is the wrong place for me to be, how do I do that? And then, and I think you should give you give yourself a few tests here and there, or at least have a method of doing that. But then it's okay, if I am going to leave this room or leave this group of people, how do I do that? And my favorite part of the book is chapter 3. There's a reason why the cover is a broken branch. Chapter 3 is about pruning. And many people, well, what do we prune? Do we prune people? Do we prune habits? Many people don't. And I just challenge people to imagine this, drive down your neighborhood, take a look around, and have you ever seen somebody's yard or lawn that hasn't been pruned? You're like, oh my God, please clean that up, right? We see people like that on a regular basis where you say, hey, what are you doing here? This is not your kind of place. Or what am I doing here? And I think that all the books that I have this self-reflection part of it. They're all designed around different conflicts. And this conflict isn't man versus man or man versus himself. This one is man versus his environment. And I think it's a fantastic thing that'll complement what people already know about handling that conflict.
Yeah, Adam, you're really a master storyteller. You really create a lot of inquiry in your book. A lot of food for thought.
Yeah,
And I also like too that none of what you do in your books is placing judgment on people.
yeah.
It's really just very analytical, and I
Hmm.
love that. And you've got some great stories in there as well too, especially the
Yeah,
one about when you were younger and found yourself in a situation where uh, you guys didn't have enough money to pay for a bill that was coming due at the Denny's restaurant,
yeah,
and you ran out the door with your friends, but so, in your conscience it just kept battering you, and you went back and paid the bill yourself for everybody.
yeah,
But
yeah,
a lot of people, if they'd gotten away with it, might not have done that. So what would that
yeah.
what might that say about the person that didn't go back and settle that score? What would you have thought about the Adam San Juan that would have gone down that road?
You know, I thought about that, and I'll tell you a number of things could have happened. And I view it in the eyes of a 10, 10, 10. 10 minutes after the event, Chris by five, whoop, got away with that. 10 months from now, holy hell, I can't go back to Denny's. What if they catch me? Um, is this now my character? Right? Is this the answer? Just leave? And then 10 years from now, I guess this is what I do. I don't fulfill my commitments. You know what I mean? And I surround myself, and you don't go into the detail, the misfits that I was hanging out with. nor did you go into the detail of the 80s tunes that were a part. There's a lot of great Easter eggs in there, that's for sure. But the 10-10-10 is something that I think everybody should go through. And that's actually a glimpse into the third book, but it's like, okay, because there's a lot of internalization. There's that conflict, man versus himself now. And you see a lot of that in that book. And so the 10-10-10 method basically says 10 minutes from now, what do I feel like? I got away with it. 10 months from now, dang, do I go back? Do I still hang out with these? But 10 years from now, what if I'm applying for a job? And let's say I did get caught. And they say, we noticed that you had this. Or let's say 10 years from now, I'm still hanging out with those cats. I would tell you right now, my life would be very, very, very different if that became my character. And this book spends a lot of time talking about the character of the people. There's the second chapter is very interesting because it talks about potential people that you just should avoid. You and I just talked about that. I don't know if you should avoid them. Is there mistakes of character or circumstance? And the fear is that people get too judgmental. And you're right. I do this without judgment. And the main reason why I do that is because you know how many times I've judged people incorrectly? And I said, I will never be good at it. I can do my best to understand it. And as a result, I've written 3 books on it. So
Oh man, just nuggets of good stuff there. I love
mm,
that 10-10-10.
yeah,
Okay, so you've got a little gift. You're coming to this breakfast
yeah,
not to take from people, but to give to people.
yeah.
Would you mind kind of sharing with the audience what it is that you're going to be gifting them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really excited about this. Anytime anybody asks me to share information, um, I've been very blessed to have my kids graduate college without any debt. You know what I mean? I've been very blessed to not live check to check. And I think that somebody's making sure I'm provided for, I'm well looked after. And so I'm not going to interrupt that formula. So, what I'm going to be giving everybody that attends that event is a copy of my book. And that is, you're looking at it right now. And I hope you spend time with it. I've had people read it and they like my first one. They like this even better because they like the pruning part of it because they're afraid of it, but they were afraid of doing that. But I like sharing. And more importantly, I like sharing because somebody will inevitably come up to me and say, you know what I liked about your book? I'm all ears. And guess what we did, Steve? We promoted dialogue. Or they said, Adam, can you speak at our book club? Absolutely. Guess what? We are all talking. And just as well, and I had this happen with every book I write. People come up to me and said, I completely disagree with it. I hate your book. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. But I never shy away from it, nor do I judge because I've been such a bad judgment of people that it said it never works. I've been wrong. And I think that that's what the first book talked about. I was grossly wrong there. And this was my attempt to get it right. So I would say that, for everybody that's going to be there at that breakfast in July, I'm looking forward to making sure you get a copy of this. I think, if you want me to sign it, I'd be happy to do it. But I would ask you to read it and share it if there's something in it that you think is meaningful. I do look at it, Steve, like a Golf Digest magazine. If you try everything here, your game will go to bleh, 1 or 2 things, and that's enough. And I would say, if I were to say one thing, focus on chapter 3. I think many of us surround ourselves with the wrong people, the wrong habits, and we're afraid to prune. And you can't be because there is text that says, you know what, if you don't prune the dead stuff, the good stuff will never grow. And that is my favorite part of the book.
Yeah, in commenting just briefly on what you said, uh, I feel like I'm a relatively decent judge of character, and I think you
Mm,
put yourself in the same boat.
mm,
But that doesn't mean we're perfect judges of character.
mm,
Uh, there, the reason I bring that up is because many of my Caerusnet members constantly appreciate a vetting process that I have before somebody new joins a team.
mm,
And it's not a perfect process, but it works, right? So it's very simple. Uh, if I'm meeting with somebody that I just think is completely out of left field and is going to really struggle in this, I'm going to try to provide resources to that person and then follow
mm,
up with them later to see if maybe then they might be the right person to be on a team. For a lot of folks, they're good to go. I mean, this is not a hard thing to do. They're good people. They're willing to learn. But what I've done most of the time is if I'm undecided, if I really can't get a finger on whether they're going to be a good fit or not a good fit, then I just let them, you know, they'll let me know by being a member, and I'll see how they respond. But there have been some times that I wasn't so sure somebody was going to work out, even as a facilitator.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that person blew my mind with what they could do. And then there
Hmm.
have been times that I've been really excited about a facilitator that was coming on thinking that they had all the right stuff to make it happen, but they were just really good at talking, not really good at doing anything else. So
Yeah. But you know what? Your trusting instinct. I like the fact that you have a process. Super Easter egg. Every single one of my books has one page with two words on it. It says on purpose. Everything you should do should be on purpose. Doesn't mean you're going to get it right and you're going to be you're going to be wrong. But I mentioned this concept of trophies and scars. You know, as long as you're learning from it, as long as you're sharing, and you got to give yourself some leash too. We are an imperfect. We got very excitable and enthusiastic people that can get us to make decisions, and then in hindsight we go, you know, what was I thinking? By the way, that's a chat. That's the title of the third book, right? So, but you weren't afraid to do that, right? And I think that that's maybe the objective of all three books is don't be afraid of the conflict. At least try to understand it. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But it's still a story worth sharing. We're talking about it right now. Oh, by the
exactly.
way, there's a vulnerability to that too. What if you were too perfect? What if you were right all the time? By the way, my wife is right all the time, and I tell her it's got to be exhausting to be you because I said the second you make a mistake, oh, and then when she makes a mistake, I don't. I do not. I do not bring it up like, oh, I could jump on this so bad, but like, nope. I'm just gonna keep it right here. But I try not to. I try to be as perfect as I can be, but when I'm not, I accept the fact that I'm not, and I want to learn about it, which means I'm going to talk about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what you just said is another thing. It's like I have a process for this, but I'm not afraid to be wrong. And maybe that's the problem. People are
You don't
afraid
care,
to be
you
wrong,
don't,
so they shut up.
yeah, well, and yeah, and I know I'm going to be wrong from time to time. I just don't let that threaten me, you know?
Ah, good point. Very good point. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
so one other quick
Yeah.
thing as
Yeah.
we wrap this up, obviously you're a man on the move with
Mm,
your primary profession, and then also
mm,
with your books and the
yeah.
legacy that you want to leave.
Hmm.
And so, for those of you that are attending the Caerusnet Breakfast, if you belong to another organization, and you have a desire for Adam to
Yeah.
potentially be a speaker to that organization,
Yeah.
please don't be shy. Adam's coming to the
Yeah.
breakfast because he wants to meet you.
Yeah.
So be sure that if Adam doesn't make his way to you, that you make your way to
Yeah.
Adam. He's
Yeah.
also going to be, as I mentioned, he's going to be gifting his newest book to everybody. I asked him to bring copies of his first book that he can make for sale. He'll
Yeah.
obviously be on hand to autograph all of these as well too.
Hmm.
So Adam San Juan, boy, you're like my one of my newest, most exciting friends over the last year. And as Jason Tracy says, the Cirrus Net Breakfast is like the fire hose of great people coming at you. And I've got
Thank
a
you.
feeling that this year's breakfast is going to be a mic drop. So really glad to have you. Thank you so
You're,
much.
you're welcome. It's going to be a lot of fun.